Hello and welcome.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello. How are you doing, brother?
Good, okay.
Good to
how
see
are
you.
Yes,
Good
you
to see
too.
you.
You too.
Thanks for coming.
Yes.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to be streaming live tonight, and I just want to say hello and welcome to everyone out there on the internet. My name is Brother T, and we're going to be talking about A Course in Miracles. So I know that there are going to be a few more people that are joining us tonight online. I apologize that I don't have everything just set up just yet, but we'll do the best we can. And I also will tell you that last week I forgot my book. This week I forgot some of my equipment. So I'm just going to say hello to you. Thanks for being with us. So tonight the video is going to be about the same, but the audio is going to be a little bit different because I don't have an individual microphone for myself. But that way, with this microphone, it's going to sound like we're all in a tin can. So we apologize for that in advance. But you'll be able to hear the questions and responses from people that are joining us here live tonight. And we just want to say thank you for being out there. So with your patience and forgiveness, I'm going to speak to them a little bit too, because there are actually maybe more people out there where you are looking at us in here, right? And so we're just going to have some fun with that. So tonight we're going to continue our discussion from last week. But last week was episode 7, and episode 7 we had a couple of new people in the group and locally here. And so what we did is I kind of did a 10,000-foot flyover, and it was a story of a superhero. So if you want to go back to truemindshift.com, TRUE, mindshift, SHIFT, not a dirty word, .com, right? Then you can go back and watch episode number 7, especially if you're new to A Course in Miracles, or this is one of the first times you've listened in to us here. Now on that channel, Brother T YouTube channel, you're going to find I have some other videos out there, but we started about 2 months ago teaching A Course in Miracles in this group we call Spiritual Alchemy here at our local center. But you're welcome to participate if you would like to, whenever you would like to, and also if you want to go back and look at some of those earlier videos. Some of them are short, some are long. I know that a class where we're here for an hour and a half is, well, it's a pretty long class, right? So we'll see how far we go tonight, and that may be difficult to keep up with if you're not, in the actual audience with us. Sometimes that can be, well, we get distracted with other things, and I certainly understand that. But the cool thing about streaming live, and I'm hoping I'm streaming live, and maybe I'm not. Yes, we are. Good. Just want to make sure. I've done that before. Thought we were streaming live and weren't. But the cool thing about streaming live is then we can go back and watch it again, or you can watch it and break it up however you might. So anyway, thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate you being here. So we had a couple of questions, and one of them was about, you want to phrase that again for me, Donald? The question was?
On Christ's miracles, perhaps?
Miracles. Okay, so last week we talked about miracles are a sudden shift of perception. But really what we were thinking, or what we were talking about before class started, we started talking about thoughts being things. In other words, you are the energy of the Creator in action. Okay, let me say that again. You, all of us, are the energy of the Creator in action. And that's true because you are an extension of God. So when you say you and God are one, that's kind of what that's referring to. The issue, however, is the part of our mind that's trying to understand this is kind of like trying to teach your cat to drive your car. You can talk about it, right? I'm just trying to get my cat to learn how to not to be on the kitchen table, right, when I'm trying to have a meal, right? It's having trouble comprehending that. And it can't scoop its poop, right? Whatever. So the point is, the mind of the small self, which we're going to call the ego self. And in A Course in Miracles, we can refer to that as the body mind, okay? The body mind. We're going to call that the small s self. It only has a certain amount of intelligence. It's literally a sliver of who you really are. Just a small fraction of who you are. And another example that we can use, and we will and refer to quite often, is the self that's sleeping at night. It's just a sliver of this self that's participating in this conversation right now, right? Because you're awake in the sense that you have a life, you know what you were going to do today when you got up, or at least you thought you did, right? You know how many kids you've got, you know how many people in your family have passed away. You have all kinds of proof, right, that you have a life, and that life is very active and very full. But the sleeping self at night is not conscious of all that. It's not even conscious that you're safe at home in bed. It believes that you are literally still continuing in your life, drama to drama to drama to drama. But it's so then just a small sliver of this self. Intellectually, wouldn't you argue? I mean, it doesn't go to school, right? It doesn't even keep up with what time it is, right? It has no idea that you're safe and home in bed, and has no idea of the rest of your life as full as it is. So it's just a sliver of you. And so we take it one more level. We can see that you then, in this apparent awakened state as a body-mind small self, that you also then are just a sliver of the true self. And that true self, in A Course in Miracles, we would refer to as the Holy Spirit. And he also tells us there that that is nothing more than your right mind. Capital R, capital M, mind, right? So that, would we say then, is your capital S self. Your capital S self, which knows. It doesn't believe anything. It knows all, because it is one with God. It's not a thinking mind. It's a mind of awareness. And it's tuned into and one with the thoughts of God. It has no separate thoughts, right? And I know that's strange for us to get our head around that a little bit, yes? But that foretells then the story of the superhero that we shared last week. So I wanted to ask what your takeaway, for those of you here that were there last week, did you come away from that conversation last week with any questions or anything that you want to dig a little deeper? Because we're just scratching the surface. That was really a very quick overview. But if it didn't scare you off, okay, and you're willing to dig deeper, then that's where we're going to go tonight, right?
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know, just something to say about the dreaming. I learned that it was dreaming body, so I'm gonna call it the dreaming body.
You can call it potato or dreaming body, whatever you want to.
It seems like just remembering my dreams,
Mm-hmm.
that in a way, it's more expanded, or it's just an additional experience. I'm having additional experiences to what I have in this life.
Having additional experiences to what you're having in this life.
I'm
When you're
open,
dreaming.
Yeah, I'm open to the teaching, but I'm still like just contemplating, is that really true? Because you said it's a sliver of, I guess, the consciousness that
It's a sliver
we
of intelligence. We're going to say it's a sliver of intelligence.
That we are walking around with
Right
on
now.
the earth right now.
Yes, in the awakened mind
So
state.
it's a smaller
Little
amount,
self.
I guess, than what we have
Mhm.
as we walk the earth.
Right. I think there was a movie where we could refer to, and I think he called it the mini-me. Right?
Movie?
Yeah, it was it was a comedy. I know some of you out there. Yes.
Yes, Michael Myers.
Michael Myers, and it was
Yeah.
$1 billion,
Yeah.
right? Remember that? He had this
yes,
little,
yes. Mini-me.
a mini-me,
Yeah.
right? So the sleeping self is kind of like a mini-me, having its own little illusion of life. And it
So
is
it's
clearly
almost like
illusion,
it's
right?
separate, because I mean, like, I've done things in my dream that I would not do walking the earth.
Yes.
You know, so
Or don't even think's possible, right?
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, so I guess in that regard, it's almost like two separate selves then. experiences are different.
It is.
Not always,
It is.
but sometimes I have gotten information in the dreaming world.
In the dreaming world.
Like literal,
Yes.
prophetic a few times.
Yes.
Information there. So I'm feeling like I must have gotten in touch with the higher self, perhaps.
Or
and
one of your
that-
guides is teaching you,
Yeah.
because you have many,
Or
many guides.
guide.
We all have many guides.
That where it's able to reach me in that state
Yep.
where they could not in the conscious.
Yeah, because we're much more fluid in the dreaming state. In other words, we have lots of guides and lots of assistants, lots of loving angels that love us and are helping us literally move along, so to speak, and to get the ego out of the way so we can begin to know our true self. And so the ego, the thinking self, is very, very busy in all of its thoughts. The dreaming self at night, the little mini-me, I love this, we're going to stay with that. The mini-me, right, is also thinking, yes, but it's not very deep. It's always just very superficial, right? And so in that state of consciousness, in that state of mind, and it truly is a shift of consciousness, a shift of state of mind, we're much more approachable because we're not so concrete. We see things flowing and moving very rapidly and sometimes very in a bizarre way, and we're willing to accept it. So it's a place where spirit, our guides, if you will, and at times I'm sure our true self is leaning into that. You know, intuitive self comes through and giving us these little nudges, right, of truth. And then we can have a prolific experience. We can have an experience of a lucid experience of dreaming, and we can get a download, if you will, of some amazing insight into our true self. Now, what we do that when we wake up is really up to us, whether or not we're going to accept it or unaccept it. I don't argue that that is counter to the statement in A Course in Miracles that dreams have no effect, because no matter what happens in the dream, nobody's really getting hurt, nobody's really getting murdered, you're really not having sex with that person you thought you were having sex with. That's not the way it works, right? It just appears to be that experience, but when you wake up, you look at it and go, oh, I was just dreaming. But I think here's the salient point that's really important to think about, even though you're not a thinker. At what point do you quit living?
No point.
No point. There is no point that you experience death. Have you noticed? You go from one dimension of mind to another state of mind, and you're not, that self is not worried about the health of the body that's sleeping safe at home in bed. It's not even conscious of it. It has no fear about that. It's like a separate, completely different self. Like the mind is split off one more time, right? But you transition into that next dimension, into that next state of mind seamlessly. There is no death of this self. It's just laying there, safe all night at home, unaware of who it's sleeping with, right? And then you transition back to this state. Now, does that self die? Did you experience death when you wake up in the morning? Do you experience death? At what point do you quit living? You don't. See, because we're trying to create an experience of separation, what's really happening then is, since we can't die, because God created you eternally, you can only shift your awareness from one dimension to another or one state of mind to another, and you're continually tracking life. You're continuously living life. But every time we go to the next little sliver of self, separating ourselves off yet again, we're moving further and further away from our true self, right? And that self is never sleeping, never confused, it has no misperception that we're a body. It has no attachment to the body. It's not worried about whether the body's safe or not, or healthy or not, or if there's any money in the bank. It's not worried about it. It doesn't worry, because it knows that you're perfect just as you are. Because God created you as perfect, neither behind the point of perfection nor advancing toward it. Make sense? Right. So the dreams do absolutely, Susan, give us an opportunity to experience new insight. Especially if we'll practice meditation, you can move closer and closer, in my humble opinion, to an experience of a lucid dream, which is really kind of where you're waking up in the midst of a dream. So that is a metaphor for enlightenment, because that's what Jesus did. When he was here, he began to become lucid. That's what Buddha did. He said, yes, I'm the dreamer of the dream. When he was asked if he was enlightened, he said, laughed and said, I'm the dreamer of the dream. And it was hilarious to him that this is a dream. He realized that at a level of mind, awareness, and enlightenment. And so did our brother Jay. I like to call him Jay because he's my buddy. So Jay, right, simply woke up and realized that he was having an experience of dream, became lucid in that experience of dream, and also became cognizant. He was able to cognize the relationship of his true self as himself. And so he would say things like, when you see me, you see the Father. Right? Good stuff. Good stuff. Great question. Did we cover it?
Yeah, I feel, I guess, more expanded about my understanding of it. I'm still open to
More conversation?
more awareness, maybe.
More awareness. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and I guess when you say dreams don't affect us, also I'm like, I think dreams do affect us. I mean, when we wake up and we have a wonderful experience or a bad one for a while, we are affected, you know.
Well, we're affected based on what we take away from it,
Yeah.
right? Because it may change. This is a symbol of a thought. And so Donald we were talking about thoughts. So this is a thought, right? And thoughts have a vibration. Thoughts are a vibration. Every thought's a vibration. So if you have a thought of fear, it literally is recognizable in frequency, in vibration. And thoughts are things, so when I plop a pebble into a clear pool of water, it ripples out. It goes out, it hits the boundary out there, and guess what happens? It ripples right back in. Comes right back to the same point where it started. Your thoughts come back to the very point where they started. The vibration that you established when you hold a thought. It goes out.
It's kind of scary.
It's kind of scary, yes. Well, to the ego, but to spirit, it's just it's just fun, right? That's why we were talking about the law of attraction, right? The law of attraction, well, when we see it clearly, is simply that thoughts are things. You are an extension of God. You are a creator. But in this dimension, we can't create. We can only make. We can only make. Because everything that we think we're creating, the table, the chair, the board, whatever, the camera, it's temporary. Will it be here 100 years from now? Maybe, but 1,000 years from now, I don't think so. Right? There are a lot of people that are afraid. They're so worked up and afraid that even our planet won't be here 10 or 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Even though it's been here for, I don't know, billions of years, because we're so powerful, no, the planet, okay, wake up, the planet would shake us off like fleas off the back of a dog. The planet is not going to be destroyed by us, but we could destroy ourselves if we keep being really stupid about how we treat the planet and treat ourselves, because the planet is a vibration. It's an entity that's giving us life, supporting us and loving us, just like the chair you're sitting in right now is loving you. I know you didn't touch that chair and say, oh, you're so nice. Right. Okay. Any other takeaways from last week?
I just wanted to point on when you say thoughts are things, it's like I see someone speed and it's like, oh, I hope he gets a ticket. And no, I don't. Because I don't want one. So I catch myself.
So when you're catching yourself having a thought, that someone else would have an experience,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That really is an attack.
Mhm.
And we're unconscious of that. Like when we say, oh, you better be safe, safe journey home, you better be careful, that's actually an attack. Because you're visioning somebody having an accident. I mean, what are you really thinking when you tell somebody, you better be safe? What thought are you holding?
Fear.
A thought of damage, destruction, sickness, pain, suffering. Thoughts are things.
But if you say be safe, and your thought is that they will be safe,
Well, then I like to put it this way. Good point. She's saying if your thought is be safe, and you're having a thought of them being safe, then why don't you just say your thought? I see a safe journey for you. I see you arriving safely, happily, and in joy. That's the vision I hold for you. You see? Not, oh, you better be. As soon as you start talking about shoulds and shouldn'ts, as soon as you start talking about safety, and that's fear. And unfortunately, yes, it's an attack. And we do it unconsciously, see, because we've made commitment to being afraid. We've made commitment to being vulnerable. But you're not vulnerable. Your strength lies in your defenselessness. And I tell you what page it is on A Course in Miracles, but it's all over the book, so it doesn't really matter.
say that again.
Your strength lies in your defenselessness.
Would you explain that?
Well, if I have a thought of fear, I'm naturally going to begin to create a defense against that thought becoming my reality. Thoughts are things, and they become our reality, especially when we hold them with passion, right?
Yes.
With deep passion, the thought becomes very, very powerful because you're giving it the energy of your awareness on a deeper and deeper level. So when we say your strength lies in your defenselessness, we're pointing to the truth, not the misperception of, the cat mind can't get this, but that you are eternal. Now, if you're eternal, and you're spirit, and you're not the body, what could you possibly be or need to defend the body from? Nothing. That's a huge leap, okay? This is really early in our study in A Course in Miracles. That might be a little deep for you out there, right?
Yeah.
Now, someone shared with me, and I've got something else I'm going to bring into the conversation pretty soon, but we're going to wind back around to this conversation because it appears that things happen to us. Yes? That's why we say things like, oh, be safe driving home, or be careful driving home, because something could happen to you that you really wouldn't want to happen. Or in other words, it could be an accident. I got some bad news. If you really believe in accidents, there's no such thing. You can only experience what you've established as potential for you to experience. Now, let me put it another way. Because you're literally a quantum being. The small self, let me give you an example. My cat may really hate going to the veterinarian. My cat might say, no way in hell would I want to have that experience of having a shot in the butt, right?
Mhm.
And hanging out with people I don't know and don't like in a room that smells like dog. Why would I want that experience? I'm being victimized. But the higher self, which we'll say is the authority, that's you, the owner, you know that it's better for the cat to have that experience for its own betterment. Yes? You take the cat to the vet because you're trying to help the cat have a better quality of life, to have a better experience. Okay, we're going to take it one more step. Your higher self, your true self, nothing more than your right mind, will line you up with a whole cast of characters, and you will have an experience and you'll say, oh, hell no, I don't need that experience. But really, it's exactly what you need to awaken to the truth of who and what you are. It takes you into an experience that otherwise would take you lifetime after lifetime, literally, to have this insight, this moment of insight where you suddenly go, oh, I get it. And you move out of fear into another experience called union of mind with your higher self. That is a miracle. Now, someone here tonight's already told me that they're ready for a miracle, right? Miracles are happening all the time because we've already defined it, but we'll do it again. A miracle is a sudden shift of perception out of the mind of fear into the mind of love. If love created you as invulnerable, perfect, and in our story last week, omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, what in the hell could you be vulnerable to? What could you be afraid of in truth? The body? I don't think so. It's not what you are. It's your reality in the moment. It's your reality right now in the physical form, yes. But you chose to play the game of separation. And you chose it for reasons that you wiped clear when you came into the game that are no longer available to you in the moment now as the small self. But when you connect with your higher self, all of that becomes available to you because you return to the knowing of yourself in truth. In other words, the small mind is no longer driving the bus. You're no longer asleep. You're having a lucid experience, an expansion of consciousness that takes you completely out of any possibility of fear whatsoever. And, oh, by the way, that would wipe out all of your karmic experience, yes? In other words, you came into this experience with a certain karmic load of things that would happen or could happen that would, like the cat going to the vet, that might appear to be painful and, oh, hell no, I don't want to have that experience. But there's something going on that you're not conscious of. That small mind is not capable of being conscious at that level. And so don't be too quick to judge what you think appears to be a catastrophe or terrible. Because at the end of the day, everything is divine. Everything is here for your enlightenment, your awakening. And a little bit of pain sometimes pushes you until vision begins to pull you. And that vision is the truth of knowing who and what you are in this experience.
So everything that we consider as an accident or a horrible situation is something for us to look at?
Everything that we consider as an accident or a horrible situation is something for us to look at, absolutely. But rather than us looking at it with a mind that's incapable of grasping it, it's the perfect opportunity to practice what in the Course in Miracles is called the holy instant. So we take a good deep breath. We turn within to the altar of the self, which is nothing more than the very center of our being. And there, starting out, we might have to pretend until we begin to realize the truth that we're not alone at that place within ourselves. At that place in mind, you're not alone. You never have been, you never could be. And there in that place, at the very center of our being, we could say at the center of self, we simply ask the question, what's the truth? And then we let that mind, which we would say is the Holy Spirit, in A Course in Miracles, the Holy Spirit, which is nothing more than your right mind, we let that mind begin to inform us of what we could never begin to grasp. That is the mind of certainty, and it lifts us literally completely out of the illusion that has been created as an experience from our own thinking and misperception. And that is a miracle. The shift of perception out of fear into an experience of true self. And again, as Jesus said, as Jay would say it, when you see me, you see the Father. He was saying, God and I are one. So in A Course in Miracles, we start out here in the realm of duality, which is where we appear to be. And we move inexorably this life or the next, or the next, or the next, or the next. No hurry, no worry. A few thousand more, no problem. But you may be discussing this now and involved in this now because maybe you're tired of it and you're ready to wake up. We move inexorably to returning to our right mind, our true self, because the Holy Spirit is that part of you that is the whole self, not a little sliver of what you really are. Yes?
You had a phrase a while ago which was right on. It was touching, but I only got the first part.
Okay.
Pain sometimes pushes you, so something
Until
pulls
vision pulls. And I got that from my wife. She's pretty good at using and unpacking that. Pain pulls. Why would I want to suffer? Because you're stubborn. And you want to keep playing God, and you really believe, a part of you, the little cat mind, believes that if you could really fix yourself and figure it out, that you could have a life of no suffering. Unfortunately, that mind's philosophy is very simple. It's underneath what's going on as your experience, and it's very simple. Seek, but do not find. Because you believe yourself to be a body that is decaying and crumbling and has a very short span of experience for the moment. Seek but do not find is not a formula for eternal peace, I would say, right? So pain pushes until vision pulls, is what Susan was asking me to repeat. What say you, Mr. Ted?
I was just thinking about some things that Jesus said that I used to take as commands, but he's really just stating, it seems like to me he's stating the truth. And it's not, believe, like you said, believe in me, believe it also in my Father, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it seems like my experiences have been, you better believe in Jesus because God won't, that's just knowing God isn't enough.
Well, I would argue that Jesus didn't believe in Jesus.
Yeah,
So who did he believe in?
God.
What was the commandment that he had to live by in order to become enlightened? Because he didn't know this command, believe in Jesus.
No.
Right?
Right.
So then that can't be absolutely true, then, can it?
It cannot.
It cannot. Because Jesus said, whatever doeth I, you, I'm terrible at quoting the Bible, as you can tell, even you will do more than what? Than me.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did he say, if you believe in me? No. But if, who knows? We don't know. That's the truth. But we could make this argument. If I wanted to stay in power and I wanted to control people to believe a certain thing, maybe I could rewrite what Jesus taught.
Yeah.
So that I could use a teaching in a particular way to stay empowered, enriched, and in control. Because what am I? Ego. And what is the ego? Insane. If you have any confusion about that, pick up the paper tomorrow. Or just listen to the news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or better, turn all that shit off. Forget it. It's crazy. We're all being manipulated to be afraid of each other, so that we'll give government our votes. We'll give the tax man our dollars to create war machines. Really? Turn it off. Big choice.
Tony, I did that about a month ago.
Did you?
I've had these teachings for a while, and I've gone back and forth.
So you unplugged about a month ago?
But I had kind of gotten into that groove again of watching TV,
Mm-hmm.
not every night, but often.
Yeah.
And because I turned my focus on something else I wanted to get done in the house, I did not watch the news for 3 weeks, very little TV at all, and I felt so good.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, and
How
then
much
you can
better
feel
I
yourself
felt.
expanding when you're not being contracted continuously with comments of fear.
And I got more clarity as to exactly more of what I wanted to be doing.
More of what you want to do. That's right, listening to
Right.
the voice of desire. Now, we teach companion to A Course in Miracles. For those of you that are finding this somewhat weird, right? There's a book that Jesus also channeled called The Way of Mastery, and some of you I know have taken a class with us. Some of you have been studying that on your own. It's a little bit more consumable just in language than A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles is written in Shakespearean iambic pentameter, which makes it a little difficult to consume because we don't speak that way, right? But Jay did that intentionally so that you would slow down and take a little bit more time to absorb the language of it. Okay? Anything else that you guys want to posit before I want to pick up a little bit of conversation out of the book? I want to read a little bit to you from the book. This comes from my dear friend Marion, who is a Course in Miracles teacher par excellence. And if you're out there, Marion, God bless you. Thanks for being here. She was sharing with me that this had come up in one of her recent group gatherings. So I'm going to go to page 165, and we're in the I call it the JCIM version, but it's actually the CIMS edition, Course in Miracles Society edition. On page 165 at the bottom is called The Acceptance of Reality. And I'm just going to read a little bit, and we'll see what comes through as I do. And I know at a certain point I'm going to stop, and we're going to start having a conversation about this. Fear of the will of God is one of the strangest beliefs that the human mind has ever made. Well, I would want to say fear in and of itself is one of the strangest things that the human mind has ever created. Because God didn't create fear. Fear of the will of God, and this comes from a lot of conditioning, right? To be afraid. In fact, there are teachings right now very prevalent in our society here in the West that you better be afraid of God. You better be God-fearing.
Yep, I get that on emails from a certain person.
Do you? You get it from people that you know that are near you, right?
Very
Sure.
Pentecostal.
I get it from people in my family. You know, I mean, they'll recite that. Oh, I'm a God-fearing. Why would you be afraid of love?
That's crazy.
That is crazy talk, right? But then again, we got that song, love hurts.
But it's like, our father, our physical family father, you wouldn't want to be afraid of your own father. Why would you want to be afraid of the
Right.
Father who created us?
Right. But that's a good point. Now, what was said was we wouldn't, and I don't know if you guys are picking it up, I believe you may be, but why would we be afraid of our earthly father, right? Our father,
Biological.
our biological father. Well, there are some biological fathers who we could point to and say they were ruthless, right? Unloving, torturous to their children. I momentarily get these little blips of insanity in our world, and this week I heard something about this couple that was arrested for murder because their 3-year-old son was found in a dumpster this week. So we could say that some fathers could be very frightening, right? And so what we've done is made God up in our own image, you see. And if when we do that, well, yeah, it makes sense that we might be really afraid of God. If God is vengeful, wrathful, jealous,
I've heard that
demands to be worshipped, needs to be worshipped, and has the power and intention to move you into some experience of eternal damnation, well, yeah, that you could be maybe a little afraid of that guy, right? But what if God was this saintly mother of love? Who said God's a guy anyway? Well, I know Jesus used that language, right? And he uses it in this book, but it's because that was the language of that era, of the patriarchal era, the time of Christ. And even to speak, we couldn't have ministers that were women, right? To even speak of something other than God being patriarchal, a man, was blasphemous. And so Jesus was doing the best he could to bring the metaphor to us in a way that we could grasp without all of us being stoned in the streets, for being blasphemous, etc., etc. And he continues that here because he's really trying to reach, I believe, he uses this language because I believe he's really trying to reach some of us out here that are still quite afraid of God, quite afraid of being eternally damned, and have been taught that if we don't believe it, that we will be, right? But if we'll back off a little bit and see God as love, when we begin to see God through the eyes of Christ, through the eyes of an enlightened master, which is you, of course, as you begin to wake up, then we can let go of that because the will of God is the extension of love. Real love, not made up, love of fear, not the kind of love that hurts, but the kind of love that heals, because it's furthest away from fear as we could be, because there is no fear in God. There's no fear in the will of God. There's no possibility of anything other than perfect experience of bliss and joy. I'm in for that. Right? How about you? So the fear of the will, well, we got through the first sentence almost. Fear of the will of God is one of the strangest beliefs that the human mind has ever made. This could not possibly have occurred unless the mind were already profoundly split, making it possible for the mind to be afraid of what it really is. Yes, we are really afraid of what we really are. Are you afraid to be perfect? Is that a scary thought? Are you afraid to be the salvation of the world? Is that a scary thought? Well, of course it is to the little mind of the little cat. It is apparent that reality cannot threaten anything except, hallelujah, illusions. Reality can only threaten misperceptions, right? It can't threaten anything that's real because what is real cannot be threatened. I'm going to turn back to the beginning of the book, if you'll allow me to segue. And he says, this course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Therefore, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Nothing real can be threatened, and you're real. You are real. So it's apparent that reality cannot threaten anything except illusions. Excuse me, since a reality can only uphold truth. The very fact that the will of God, which is what you are the will of God, is perceived as fearful to you demonstrates that you are afraid of what you are. It is not then the will of God of which you are afraid, but it's actually your will, your true self, that you're afraid of. But who's really afraid? I want to say here, When he's saying you here, he's really talking about this self, the ego mind, the ego self, the small self. The cat is afraid of the veterinarian because it doesn't know the veterinarian is only acting out of love and purpose of love, healing and purpose of healing. And we're like that. This ego self is like that frightened little cat. I'm a scaredy cat. The very fact that the will of God, which is what you are, is perceived as fearful to you demonstrates that you are afraid of what you are. It is not then the will of God of which you are afraid, but yours. Your will is not the ego's. And that is why the ego is against you. Remember, as we said earlier, we're going to come back to a discussion, but the mind is split. You're split in two. And you're split in two between the false self and the true self. Your will is not the ego's, and that is why the ego is against you. Yes, I know that we love the ego. We want to be friendly to the ego and embrace the ego, and that's all good. And yes, ultimately, we do transcend the ego, not by attacking it, but by forgiving it, by recognizing that it's the mind of dreams, and dreams have no effect. So there's nothing there to really be afraid of. What seems to be the fear of God is really only the fear of your own reality. I'll add this: you're perfect, neither behind the point of perfection nor advancing toward it, and you must see yourself therefrom. Perfect. You are as God created you to be. You haven't changed it because you're having a dream or a nightmare where some crap is happening. That doesn't change what you are. It doesn't make you guilty. It doesn't make you anything. Because while we can have insight and experiences that appear to be reality in a state of dreaming, in truth, nobody got married, nobody got tortured, nobody got murdered. Dreams have no effect in reality. It's impossible to learn anything consistently in a state of panic. And we're pretty much in a damn state of panic all the time. Because we're continuously listening to the voice of fear, and why wouldn't we be? And if you have any doubt, turn the news on again. The world is in a state of panic continuously. If the purpose of this course is to learn what you are, and if you have already decided that what you are is fearful, then it must follow that you will not learn this course. See, this course requires you to let go of your many, many lifetime commitment, if you'll allow me to imagine reincarnation as possible. Long-term commitment to that you are something other than what you actually are. The dreaming self at night believes it's something other than what you know you are because you were safe at home in bed all night long and it had no clue. It has no clue. If you do not know your reality, how would you know whether it is fearful or not? You see, when we start applying reason to our experience, and this book is profoundly reasonable, when we start applying reason to our experience, we begin to see it begins to crumble. And we begin to laugh at what the world is terrified of and what we used to be terrified of. Because we see that it's just illusion. It's all made up. It's all made up. The association of truth and fear, which would be highly artificial at most, is particularly inappropriate in the minds of those who do not know what truth is. All that this kind of association means is that you are arbitrarily endowing something quite beyond your awareness with something you do not want. If your true self is beyond your awareness, the small self ego cannot even begin to even imagine, and it does all the time, but it believes that it can imagine what the true self is. But once you have that experience of enlightenment, once you have that experience of connection with your higher self, the voice of certainty is an experience that will rock your world forever, and nothing can ever erase it from your knowing. because now you've had union with truth, and everything else is seen as what it truly is, illusion. All that this kind of association means is that you're arbitrarily endowing something quite beyond your awareness, which is your true self, with something of which you're totally unaware. The ego will never know the true self. Yet the true self, like you are there all night long experiencing the dreaming self, it's unaware of you. And when you wake up, you can remember the dreams, but it never knew you, not the real you. It didn't have the capacity to know the life you're really living now and the real self that you are, believing yourself to be as a body. You have set this strange situation up so that it is completely impossible to escape it and to escape from it, if you will, without a guide, capital G guide, who does know what your reality is. So I think that's what he's referring to, Ted, the Bible, really.
Mm-hmm.
When it momentarily, ooh, this is going to hurt, I'll say this, so please forgive me. When the Bible momentarily stumbles upon the truth. Okay? When someone says, you know, unless you know Jesus, you will not know God.
Yeah.
We could break that down, unpack that a little bit, and correct it just a little bit by saying, unless you begin to understand what Jesus knew, you will not truly know God. And there's a big difference, you see. We can twist those words and make it sound like we need to know Jesus. No. If you know what Jesus knew, then you are awake. No longer hoodwinked. Did you need to know Jesus? No, that guide, capital G guide, is your higher self, the Holy Spirit. It's available to you to help you and move you along, and other guides are available to you as well. And yes, Jesus is there all alone. You see, we move from duality to non-duality to union of mind. So Jesus, my brother Jay, is with us right now in this space, in this time, in this mind that we all are. We're all connected eternally forever and ever. Amen. It's all okay. And thank goodness that Jay, Jesus, and God and Spirit and your higher self never judges anything that you do. Nothing. Do you judge the dreaming self at night when you wake up and go, oh, that bad self, I'm going to go back in there tonight and fix that self? No, you see that it was just a dream, and it's not even who you really are. See, this is beautiful. This is magnificent. This is brilliant. This is freedom from illusion. Makes me want to cry. The purpose of this capital G guide is merely to remind you of what you want. This is, if you'll allow it to be, can be your guide. And all this love is attempting to do is to remind you of what you really want anyway, which is peace and freedom and the imagination of safety, of invulnerability and sinlessness and no experience of death and all that shit that we're so afraid of. That's nothing to be afraid of anyway, because it's all illusion. The purpose of this guide is merely to remind you of what you want. He or she, you choose. There's no gender in spirit. She's not attempting to force an alien will upon you. Nothing can override your will. God is not trying to override your will. You have free will. Or at least you're experiencing the illusion of free will. And until you give up that illusion, you won't experience that you are the will of God, its self, his self, herself. That's your will. And that will is simply the extension of love, being loving and recognizing itself in all, being all in all. He is merely making every possible effort that you will allow, I'm adding that, within the limits that you impose on him. And the capital H him here is referring to the Holy Spirit, nothing more than your right mind. It is you. To reestablish then your own will, which is the will of God, in your consciousness. To know yourself as God. When you see me, as Jay said, when you see me, you see the Father. Paragraph 93, you have imprisoned your will in your unconscious, where it remains available but cannot help you. Your will is the will of God. Therefore, the higher self, the true self, the Holy Spirit, nothing more than your right mind, is imprisoned, if you will, in your consciousness. When we said that the Holy Spirit's function is to sort out the true from the false in your unconscious, we meant that he has the power to look into what you have hidden and perceive the will of God there instead, I'll say. His perception, her perception, capital H perception, of this will can make it real to you because he is in your mind and therefore he is your reality. If then his perception of your mind brings its reality to you, he's teaching you what you are. And it's something that we can unlearn, all of this illusion, all of this ego self. So, wow, that's a lot to cover, right? That's a lot. Pretty deep, pretty profound. But it pretty much resonates with our story last week, right? The hero's journey. We've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten our true self. So I want to just kind of, for people that might be watching at home or gathered together looking in, peering into our reality here inside this computer, that there is, we'll just call it a split mind, right? If we could say that this is the capital M mind, then we could have an experience of illusion, of separation. When we began to play the game of separation, because we cannot be separate from God, we had to create, literally, or make, as we would refer to it in the Course in Miracles, because it absolutely is temporary. We began to pretend to play a game of separation. And in that game that we've agreed to, you can't ever be outside of a relationship. You have to forgive God for creating you in a relationship. You can't be alone. You've never been alone. You couldn't even come into the illusory world of form, the tiny mad idea that you could be separate from God. I call it the game. You couldn't do that by yourself. Everything in the Bible is a metaphor, right? Spirit is quantum. Spirit is able to communicate to us only in a way that we can handle in a linear fashion, because our little sliver of intelligence is just that. We think we're very smart. We don't have a clue, right? Just like the dreaming self at night has no clue how ridiculously uninformed it is about who we are. So this little self then, we joined with someone else or more, and we said, I'll play the game, I'll get into this, I'll do this. And so the tiny mad idea became an experiment, a game of separation. And when we did that, well, our whole mind didn't come into, when you go to sleep at night, your whole mind does not go boom in there and now you're never coming out again, right? The body rests and your mind returns to itself and you wake up, ultimately, right? You wake up. So all of you is not really, I mean, you're peering in, but you know that it doesn't know you and the little sleeping self we're talking about. So imagine that, taking it one more level, that we could say that the higher self, the true self, the right mind that you are, we could even say the Holy Spirit, is not dreaming a dream. It's never fell asleep. Remember, it's just kind of like if we could circumscribe God, that there was just a little sliver of that mind, and we just say, okay, now it looks like this is what we are, and we're separated from God. Do that. Oh, and the sleeping self could go, one more level, another little sliver of that self. This self is not asleep. And so we could call this the soul, if we want to, because this is what God created as an idea. You are an idea of love in the mind of God. God created you. So we could call this the Christ mind, really. Yes, Jay did not take it all with him. We're all part of that mind, every one of us. The billions and billions and billions of us. So on the other side, that mind that's split is then this ego self. This is the small self. And in order to, and we're going to say this is the dreaming self. Small self. This is the capital S self. This self, in order to really create the illusion, to make it believable as that we are separate, having an experience of separation, we created a body.
It was quite effective.
It was quite effective, and you do it every night when you go to sleep. You still have a body, don't you? Even though you know that it's just a projection, because you're safe at home in bed. So that body that you're dreaming with every night is just a fabrication. It's a projection of what? Mind. Not the capital M mind, but the small mind of the ego self. And so this self created a body, right? Some happy, some not so happy. To maintain the illusion. But since everything that we made is not real and temporary, you're wondering why you only live a few decades? Or maybe a few hundred years for those of you who are getting your DNAs waking up now. So don't be surprised in your next life, when you come back and do this again, that you live maybe a couple hundred years in the next experience, because our DNA is beginning to evolve and awaken now. We're entering a new age. Now, that's for the discussion next week, maybe. So this is the split mind, okay? And that's what he's referring to. This self is unaware of this self. But this self knows truth. This is the self that we are trying to get in touch with when we meditate, when we are practicing connection, when we take that deep breath on the holy instant and simply say, what is the truth here? We go within to the inner altar and quieten the mind. And we literally begin to ignore this self. It's still thinking, doing its thing. But we can ignore it. It's like move the cat to the back of the bus. It still may be meowing and whining back there, but you can ignore it. You have the power. The only thing that this mind cannot defend itself against is you ignoring it. Because all power under heaven and earth is yours. That's right. Yeah. How we doing? We're doing pretty good. We didn't run over yet. So we went about an hour, so if you want to go ahead and take a break, check out, you can do that. I had the idea that we would quit live streaming now and we would just kind of have Q&A here. But if you guys want to continue, I'll just let the thing run and we'll just let it go. If you guys want to hang out with us, hang out with us, whatever you want to do, right? Because we're just getting warmed up. We could be here till midnight. Who knows? Jay used to go visit people at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and say, "You're gonna sleep forever. Just go. Why waste your time? Get up. We've got a lot of stuff to learn." He was a very radical guy.
Yeah.
Not very popular.
I do have a question.
Okay,
When we
question.
come into this experience, do we bring upon all of our experiences? Do we bring experiences into our life to teach us?
Every experience.
Every experience, even as children.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. And when you don't learn a lesson, it seems to keep happening over. It's like dating that wrong guy. You
It's
keep
like
dating the same
you
wrong
keep
guy.
you keep dating or marrying the wrong guy or girl. They're just a different bag of skin and hair and
Right.
but they have the same attribute that they end up being Because it's a vibration, right? Your
Mhm.
thoughts are at a vibration. And so you partner up with somebody that's vibrating at the same level as you are.
But when it comes to children,
Children,
yep, and, you know, things happening to children and children dying at a young age and things like that, that was their experience in this lifetime.
you mean those that get out early?
Yes, the ones that get out early.
Those fortunate ones
Yeah.
who really are angels. I had a younger brother who passed away when we were I was about 5 and he was about 3. And it was really kind of weird because we were spending the night at my grandmother's, short story. And back then, wow, that's like 60 years ago. Doctors come to your house, right? Great. So we're staying at my grandmother's house. Mom and Dad were at a square dance, and Dad played music. So they were 3 o'clock in the morning before they would get home for sure, or come and pick us up. So they didn't want to. So we were just going to spend the night with my grandparents. So my brother started coughing, and it just kept getting worse. And so it developed into what we call, I think it's common now, a vernacular would be, it developed the croup, as a phrase that I've heard many times since. So he got the croup, and he's just coughing, coughing, coughing. And so my grandmother called the doctor. And then we're a little bitty town in the south. And the doctor comes over, and it's like midnight, maybe 12:30, something like that. And the doctor is telling my grandmother, well, we've got this new product that just came out, and everybody's really, really excited about it. It's called penicillin. So we're going to give him a shot of penicillin, and we really believe this is like this miracle drug. 60 years ago, absolutely it was. Unfortunately, some people are really allergic to that.
Oh.
And in fact, I found out later that if I had a shot of penicillin, it would kill me. And it did kill him. Right? Now, I could say, well, Terry was an angel because he came in to help me realize that if I had a shot of penicillin later in life, it would kill me. So that maybe at some point I would begin to wake up so I could be doing this. I don't know. I don't need to know. Did I lose him? No. I'm pretty sure he's in my family now. But I love them all. See, it doesn't really matter, does it? It doesn't matter how he's manifesting in this experience now. What's relevant to me was that at the time I didn't grieve his passing because I didn't know what death was. But I looked at the parents, and I looked at the grandparents, and I looked at the aunts and uncles, and I looked at the other people around that were grieving horribly. And so I learned from that yeah, I'm supposed to be sad. But I didn't feel like I lost him because I didn't know loss, really. And I certainly didn't know how to act appropriately so that it appeared that I was suffering. I know that I'm still in communion with him. I know that I'm still in contact with him, and no one ever leaves you without leaving a part of themselves with you. And you never leave this plane without leaving a part of yourself here as well. And you've been here many, many times, so there's a whole lots of yous running around here.
I like that.
Little thoughts of love all over the place. Yeah.
Then what about suicide?
Suicide, some people say, well, the suicide, I look at suicide and go, well, it's really shocking to me that a lot more of us aren't committing suicide because this is hell. This is an experience of separation from love. This is an experience of isolation. This is an experience of unworthiness. This is an experience of sin and sickness and death. Why in the hell are we sticking around for this?
For enlightenment.
For what?
Enlightenment.
For enlightenment. Yes, we are. So those of us that have those experiences with our brothers and sisters where they might be, appear to be not living anymore, well, that's a lie. You've never experienced death. They didn't die. That's not possible. God didn't create death. We created death in this dreaming self. This is a dream. Dreams have no effect. So if we can really begin to grasp that, embrace that, and accept that, we can begin to realize that the only thing that needs to shift when someone appears to leave our experience in physical form is the way we communicate with them. They're still available. Yeah, I know you can't maybe physically hold them, but they're still with you. Love never leaves you. Not real love. It never, never, ever leaves you. And they're in contract with us to show us ourselves. What are we afraid of? Remember, this is the self of fear. This is the dimension of fear, but it's, thank goodness, just illusory, just a dream. And this is the perfect scenario for us to begin to remember what we are. So all we need to do is allow that capital G guide, capital T teacher, capital F friend, capital V voice for God, capital C comforter, and say, I don't know the truth. I realize my limitation as a small-minded human self. And I'm being told by one I trust and love, who has demonstrated that death is not real, and that's in the Bible. I believe that's in the Bible. There was some kind of a resurrection.
Oh.
After some kind of a crucifixion.
Yeah.
Jay says we crucify ourselves way worse than what he went through. Right? Continuously. Stop it. Jay shared another, now this is channeled work for you. And if you're out there, and if you're new to this and you happen to find us and this conversation tonight, you're probably ready to turn that sucker off and run out of the room or whatever you got to do. That's okay. This isn't for everybody because everybody's not really ready yet. But if this resonates with you, you're on the leading edge of those that are going to shift and change the world as we know it. So don't run out of the room just yet. Not just yet. So if any of this could be true, and you begin to accept it as your truth and as your reality, and you begin to allow Jesus to be your guide, once again, not the Jesus Christian, or some have made him out to be. No. He's just like you, just like all of us. He was in human form, but he began to know something, and you're beginning to know something, and he allowed that knowing to shift and change his experience, and he became lucid, he became enlightened, he became realized as his true self in physical form. Complicated? Not really. Difficult? Yeah, kind of like golf. Just hit it and put it in the cup. Good luck with that, right? Sounds easy, but you got to practice. And our practice is take a good deep breath. Let's take a good deep breath right now. We come back to center of self. See, silence is golden. The one thing this mind of fear can never move beyond is you're ignoring it. And you can only ignore that thinking, chattering, screaming little self, fear, 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 when you just tell it to shut up. I'm not listening to you. I think the phrase in the Bible was, get thee behind me. It was talking about this devil, right? Well, the ego is kind of that. Because it's insane. But it's not real. If you want to call it the devil, fine, but the devil has no power. Not over you. Not over any of us. That's what Jay began to realize. And then he had a full-on experience of enlightenment. He broke through the veil. And he's back with us. He never left us. He's always with us. And he's with us now. And he's channeled this work through Helen Schachtman in 1965 to 1972, and it's called A Course in Miracles. Scares the hell out of people. Scares the hell out of Christians, for sure. Well, Jesus was never a Christian, so don't get too caught up on it. Don't take yourself too serious. I know. I'm sorry. Forgive me if I'm being blasphemous. You're entitled to believe whatever you want to believe. Absolutely. And so are we. We have free will just like you do. If you doubt truth, I get it. So I ask, don't believe anything I'm sharing, not from me. But I do encourage you to believe this teaching from our brother Jesus Christ. If you can't believe that that's channeled and that's real, then that's okay. You're entitled to believe whatever you want. You have free will. Just please allow us ours. Because I know that when you begin to experience this truth, you will have an experience of truth. Spirit will begin to speak to you on a profound level, in a profound way. It may be a bumper sticker that you see in the next week. It might be a song that comes on the radio, and you'll have a moment of insight, and you're going to find yourself being able to bridge this gap and to move and create an access point where you can begin to be in touch with your higher self. And it is the voice of love. And it loves you beyond your wildest imagination. And it is healing, because the holy instant, the sudden shift of perception out of fear into love, is the purification of mind. And through the purification of mind, our body lines up with that consciousness. And when our body lines up with that consciousness, we begin to feel better, we begin to heal, we begin to youth instead of age. Oh, I know, that's not possible. Check it out. Because you're experiencing what you believe is possible and nothing else. Yes?
I had a spiritual teacher in Minnesota. He said to me, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
That's a good one. Don't throw the baby out with the
I
bathwater.
could not figure that out for nothing. So finally I went and asked him, what are you talking about? I have no idea. But he explained it to me, and it's like, oh, I get it.
So explain it to us.
So basically,
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
what I take away was, just because you don't agree with one part of the information, don't throw the whole thing away. That's what I got.
Very good.
Yes.
I like that.
I love that.
Where did the phrase come from?
Jesus?
No.
Thought I'd
Do you know where it came from, Susan?
So, I don't know, but I've heard it all my life. I'm
Okay.
from the country, so I don't know. Maybe
It's something to do with birth, I guess, and the
Folklore.
leftovers and all that.
Birth and leftovers?
Mhm.
No, actually, in our patriarchal history, when we were, very rural, we didn't have, the outhouse was outhouse, out back. We didn't have running water, right? But we had a well, and we had a fireplace. And a few people found that, after a certain number of days or weeks, it was probably a good idea to take a bath.
once a week on Saturday.
And so they would, once a week on Saturday, before you go to the shindig, or you put on your Sunday go to meeting clothes. And so we're going to fill up the tub, and Dad, because men get to go first, they get to eat first, they get to bathe first. They would be the first one in the tub. Well, they've been out working in the field. Guess who's full of mud?
Oh, ew.
Guess who's really stinky dirty? Well, there's only one bathtub. There's only one tub filling. So then Mom gets in, and then once the adults, then the children get in, and the last one to bathe typically would be the younger ones. And the water was so dirty that they would literally disappear in the dirtiness of the tub. And then when it came time to throw the tub out, the water out, oh my God, well, don't throw the baby out with the bath water. Because it was literally that dirty. At least in my imagination. That's where the phrase came from.
I like my phrase better.
She likes hers better. I get it. I'm sorry to tarnish that.
La 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 la.
But to examine all parts of it and to know that there is a richness in all teachings. There's richness in the Bible, yes. There's truth in the Bible. Absolutely. It was inspired. Absolutely. There's truth in songs that we hear, right, on the radio from time to time. You'll notice that you can start connecting, this is a moment of truth in this saying, this is a moment of truth in this song. But what it's going to continue, and you're going to continue to point you to, is this truth. That this self is not the real self. This is a self of fear. It's a small self. It's afraid. It's vulnerable. It's fragile. And it believes that it's unworthy. It believes in guilt. It believes in sickness. It believes in aging. It believes that it is the body, and it wants the body as its salvation and its destruction. But this teaching says, no, this is you. This is the true self.
I wanted to read something that
Please do.
was helpful, I guess, in me understanding a little bit about the two selves there.
Okay.
And it's about the body that Claudia pointed this out. It's about 3 sentences. It is only the awareness of the body that makes love seem limited. For the body is a limit on love. The belief in limited love was its origin, and it was made to limit the unlimited.
Awesome.
Mm.
What page are you on?
Yeah.
372.
372. Do you mind if I read again for the audience at home?
Not at all.
I love that.
So we're going to go to 372 in the textbook. And it's the purpose of the body, paragraph
Yeah, the first
7.
one. I didn't read all of it. Just
Okay. This is the purpose of the body, page 372 in the textbook. It is only the awareness of the body that makes love seem limited. For the body is a limit on love. The belief in limited love was its origin, and it was made to limit the unlimited. You are the unlimited, and you're not the body. Think not that this is merely allegorical, for it was made to limit you. Can you see yourselves within a body? Know yourself as an idea. We had said earlier tonight that you are an idea in the mind of God. You are spirit. And Susan, what did you say that cleared up for you, or what did that passage show you?
I don't know if I can really put it in words. It kind of helped me to, I guess, know why we think that we are that we are limited, so limited
Right.
in our view of ourselves, I guess. So when I read that the body was made for that reason,
It is.
it's like, kind of like, oh, it is made to limit the unlimited. So
Yeah.
we are unlimited,
We are indeed.
but we have a body. Somehow it just cleared
Right.
up that.
Well, we had to have this body to, in other words, to make the dream believable.
It's sort of like the separation.
Yes.
It really,
It's a symbol of separation.
it
indeed.
helped us to feel separate.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Because without this, we were just still mind. And mind can never be separate. And we already know, we already experienced the mind. We actually kind of believe our mind is separate and that thoughts can be private. This is another uncomfortable teaching from the Course in Miracles, says there's no private thoughts. What? Yes. But thoughts are just vibrations. And see, vibrations are felt by all of us because we're all part of the same mind. We've never really left the mind of God. We didn't really split ourselves off. We're really whole and one with God. Ideas in the mind of God. But this body helped to make the illusory dream believable. That's why we have one at night when we're dreaming at night too. That's obviously another symbol or metaphor of the illusion that we set up. See how brilliant we are? Really? I mean, this is pretty damn creative, right? That we can imagine ourselves contracted into a form of separation.
I guess I feel more expanded now that I understand that just a part of us is in this body.
That's right. Actually, I'd like to twist that and say that the body is actually within you. This is you.
Yeah, okay.
You're all of this. And the body, the body is contained within the mind. The Christ mind. Separated itself off as a dreaming mind and then created the illusion that it's form, that it's physical. But it's contained within the mind. And that's difficult to imagine when we first look at that. But if we look at the dreaming self at night, we have no issue with making that same statement. Yeah, the dreaming self at night is contained within the mind because I'm safe at home in bed, having a dream of illusions, a dream of images, a dream of thoughts and experiences of drama, but all of it's, every bit of it's in my mind. So that body that I'm projecting in that state of dream is absolutely contained within my mind. And we can connect those dots fairly comfortably, yes?
So you're safe at home in your bed, so is it after to say your body is safe at home in bed, but you're not really.
You're not
not
really
your
there at
body.
all. You're taking another
you're
little.
everywhere.
Yeah, you're taking another little contracted dream in mind, right? But we don't wait, we wake back up and we don't see that, oh, I'm still dreaming. So in A Course in Miracles, Jesus says you are always in a state of dreaming. And we'll touch on that again and again and again, because the comparison to the sleeping self at night and the state of consciousness that we're experiencing right now is really a tremendous blessing, because we can see it. So he's pointing to the symbology of that metaphor, that we really are safe and home in heaven right now. Safe and home in the mind of God. So this Christ mind is a part, an idea, if you will, in the mind of God, the infinite self of God. And when we wake up to that self, then we are infinite as well in our realization, in our awareness. And that's pretty radical, right? Pretty far out. A far cry from the traditional teachings of our religions of this world today. Yeah, a far cry from that. Let's see how we're doing. We got 4 minutes. We could solve all kinds of problems in 4 minutes. So are we striking any resonance with you tonight?
Well,
Making any sense?
it's gonna take some more boiling the turkey or something like that.
Yeah, it's hard to grasp it when you're brand new at this.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to share something with you. It only takes about 20 years, and it starts to sink in, right? But for those of you who are younger, and maybe some of you out there are, and this is your journey back, if you will, in this time of this shift of our planet today. Wow. This will make quick sense to you, where the rest of us, maybe some of us who've had a few more decades in this experience, are much more conditioned to the ways of the world. And so it's really hard to break through that armor that we've built up around our heart. We've got this plate of armor around our heart to protect ourselves. And that's hard to break through. But our young ones coming in now, those returning now, and some have been around for 60 years. I could say old soul. I know that some of you are tuning into this. Yeah, you're getting this, and this is really resonating with you. But if you're brand new to A Course in Miracles, be patient and loving with yourself. Please don't expect yourself to just, oh yeah, I got that. No, I've been studying this literally for about 20 years now, and I'm just beginning to get it a little bit. And I'm glad to share what I have learned and the spiritual experiences I've had with those of you who are taking it on. But it is a monumental, epic journey into the self. And it requires us to really be willing to let go of all of the beliefs of the world. Not just a few, but ultimately we begin to let go of pretty much everything that we've held on to for so long. In fact, we begin to ask the question often students of this work begin to ask themselves, well, I don't know who I am. Because we begin to see that the self that we've made up is a fabrication of our own thoughts, our own beliefs. So if I'm not my thinking self, if I'm not the self that I've made myself up to be, that I've convinced the world and the guy in the mirror, the lady in the mirror who I am, if that's not truly who I am, then who am I? Who am I supposed to, how am I supposed to be? And so there is a period that some people go through called the dark night of the soul, really, where I just don't know, I don't know who the hell I am. Well, who you are in truth, and this is the beautiful thing about A Course in Miracles and the teaching of A Course in Miracles, he's telling you right now who you really are. You're perfect, neither behind the point of perfection nor advancing toward it. You are the Christ child, this perfect child of God. That's who you are. It's what you are. And what you are then is, and potential for all of us then, through this work, is to become the embodiment of that, the energy of the Creator in action. right? The energy of the Creator in action is what we are, right? It's who we are. And what we are is the embodiment of the energy of the Creator in form, which means then if we truly are that, as Jay said, when you see me, you see the Father, then in every expression that you put upon the world, you're first going within to the altar, you connecting with self, the higher self, capital S self, and you're saying, what's the truth? And then you're letting that self be who you are. When you see me, you see the true self. You see the self of love that I am in this now moment, in this moment, in this moment. And so the small self begins to literally go further and further back at the bus until it's so far back at the end of the bus that you're not even giving it any of your awareness or attention, because you are blissed out in love with yourself. The end of the story is to return to loving of yourself, truly knowing yourself as love and being in the grace of your own beneficent perfection. It's a great story. Right, Ted?
It is.
It is indeed. I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. Let's close with a prayer. Let's take a good deep breath. We're 1 minute over, but we're not going to worry about it.
Time is illusion.
Time is an illusion. I am forever an effective God. Father, I was created in your mind, capital M mind, a holy thought that never left its home. I am forever your effect, and you forever and forever are my cause. As you created me, I have remained. Where you established me, I still abide. And all of your attributes abide in me, because it is your will to have a child so like his cause that cause and its effects are indistinguishable. As my brother Jesus said, when you see me, you see the Father. Indistinguishable. So let me know that I am an effective God, and so I have the power to create like you. And as it is in heaven, so on earth. Your plan I follow here. And at the end, I know that you will gather your effects into the tranquil heaven of your love, where earth will disappear and separate thoughts unite in glory as the children of God return home. So let us today behold earth as it begins to become transparent, at first transformed and then forgiven, and fade entirely then into God's holy will. And so it is. Thanks for joining us at home. Thank you so much for being there. Thank you guys for being here. I love you one and all. Blessings.
Thank you.
And have a great evening. Bye-bye.
I wonder if it's okay to wear my cap in church.
No one's gonna oust you.
Well, I'll make a deal. If you won't comment on my ugly hat, I won't comment on your ugly hat. How about that?
That's a deal.